Welcome back to Shadow Wars. Today's story is about a mission that was supposed to save lives, but instead, it exposed the limits of American power and changed special operations forever. It began in November 1979. Furious Iranian revolutionaries stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, taking 52 American hostages. The world watched in shock. President Jimmy Carter called it a despicable act of terrorism. But as the days dragged on, into weeks, into months, the U.S. realized diplomacy was going nowhere. So, in the shadows, a new force was activated. Delta Force, the Army's elite counterterrorism unit, barely 3 years old at the time. Their task a daring rescue mission deep inside hostile territory. The plan was complex. 8 helicopters, and several C-130 aircraft would fly from a staging base in Oman into the Iranian desert, to a remote spot codenamed Desert 1. From there, Delta operators would link up with CIA assets, move by truck into Tehran, storm the embassy, free the hostages, and fly everyone out. Simple, in theory, but in reality, a logistical nightmare. On April 24, 1980, the mission began. And immediately, things started to go wrong. A dust storm over the desert disabled 2 helicopters. A third developed a mechanical failure and had to abort. Only 5 helicopters reached Desert 1. The minimum required was 6. Delta's commander, Charlie Beckwith, made a painful call. Abort the mission. But before the team could leave, disaster struck again. One of the helicopters collided with the C-130 during refueling. 8 American servicemen were killed instantly. Fire engulfed the aircraft. Chaos, screaming, burning metal. The mission that was supposed to be silent and swift ended in fire and death before even reaching Tehran. The bodies were left behind in the desert, the hostages, still prisoners, and the world watching. In the next chapter, we'll uncover what went wrong inside the planning rooms. How insurgency, rivalry, poor intel, and political pressure sabotaged the operation. And how the ghosts of Desert 1 haunted every special mission that came after. Stay with me. What happened in the Iranian desert wasn't just a failed mission. It was a catastrophic failure of coordination, leadership, and planning. Let's break it down. Operation Eagle Claw, the official name for the rescue, was never just a Delta Force mission. It involved the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, CIA, and even the State Department. But instead of unity, what the operation got was confusion and rivalry. Each branch brought its own equipment, its own procedures, its own chain of command. There was no joint communication system, no unified rehearsal. Some teams met for the first time, in the middle of the desert. The helicopters? They were Navy or H-53Ds, designed for minesweeping, not desert warfare. Pilots had limited training in night flying or navigation over sea. One of them flew straight into a haboob, a massive dust storm, and turned back. Another broke down midair, but the most fatal blow came not from the enemy, but from poor judgment. When only 5 helicopters reached Desert 1, the team had a decision to make. Proceed with less than required, or abort. Colonel Charlie Beckwith, commanding Delta Force, said no. He would not risk the hostages or his men. He gave the order to abort. It should have ended there. But during refueling, a miscommunication between the helicopter and the C-130 caused the collision that killed 8 men. The aftermath was immediate and devastating. Photos of the burned wreckage, American bodies lying in the sand. They were broadcast across the globe. The United States looked helpless. Its most elite forces, beaten not by the enemy, but by themselves. President Jimmy Carter took full responsibility. His approval ratings collapsed. Many historians believe Eagle Claw was the nail in the coffin for his re-election. Inside the Pentagon and CIA officials scrambled to shift blame. Reports were redacted. Mistakes covered with classified stamps. But some truths slipped out. Delta Force hadn't been given the support it needed. The helicopters weren't combat ready. The agencies involved refused to share intelligence, and no one had planned for failure. Worst of all, the Iranians, who hadn't even detected the force before the crash, tightened security around the hostages immediately afterward, making any future rescue nearly impossible. In trying to be bold, America had made the worst kind of mistake. It showed its hand and its weakness all at once. But out of the ashes of Eagle Claw came something unexpected. In the final chapter, we'll see how this disaster transformed U.S. Special Operations forever, leading to the creation of the Joint Special Operations Command, and how the lesson learned in one desert reshaped every Black Op that followed. In military history, some failures echo louder than victories. Desert 1 was one of them. 8 Americans died. 0 hostages rescued. The mission was a disaster. But in the shadows, something unexpected happened. The failure became a blueprint for change. Within weeks of operation, Eagle Claw's collapse, internal reviews were underway. Delta Force operators, pilots, intelligence officers, all gave testimony. And one theme emerged again and again. We were never allowed to work together. There was no central command for special operations. Each branch did things its own way, and when thrown into the same mission, they collided instead of collaborating. Washington realized that had to change. And in the aftermath, a quiet revolution began. By 1987, the United States created something unprecedented. JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Command. It would become the nerve center of America's most secretive missions. Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, 24th, STS, the Intelligence Support Activity, all trained to fight together, not just as elite warriors, but as a single organism. Their missions would no longer be reactive. They would be preemptive, targeted, surgical, quiet. The kind of operations no one would ever hear about, unless something went wrong. Eagle Claw also changed how America looked at intelligence and logistics. The CIA, criticized for unreliable local assets, began embedding deeper with elite military units. Air mobility improved, night vision tech advanced, and drone surveillance, once a fantasy, became the new standard. By the time the U.S. launched the raid that killed Osama bin Laden in 2011, the operation bore no resemblance to Eagle Claw. It was fast, silent, flawlessly coordinated across multiple agencies. But here's the irony. It only worked because of the failure in 1980. Every lesson was learned the hard way, with fire, blood, and international humiliation, and yet, the ghosts of Desert 1 still linger. In the Special Ops community, the name Desert 1 isn't just a place. It's a warning that no amount of training or courage can fix flawed planning and broken command. It's why every modern mission is now rehearsed, reteamed, and backed by intelligence from multiple sources, because the cost of getting it wrong has already been paid. Thank you for watching Shadow Wars. If you found this story gripping, it should be, because behind every failed mission is a war you were never supposed to hear about. Subscribe for more secrets buried in classified files, because history doesn't whisper forever. Sometimes, it burns in the sand.